satisfying knowing that we are so bad at actually taking the advice that we give. The fact that we give better advice to other people rather than taking the advice that we already know. I was speaking to my class today, and I had them write on who they wanted to be and what they wanted to achieve, because I think that's super important, especially at that age, to start, thinking about. This is 8th grade or 7th grade. And so one of the kids wanted to make a lot of money, and I was talking about entrepreneurship. Not that I'm like this freaking Alex Ramosi, but that, from my knowledge, from experience, and also just like from what I know, I was giving him some advice. He goes, if you know this, why don't you do it? And I said, I am doing it. I just also work here as I wait for my business to grow. But I was thinking about it, and I'm like, he touched on a sore spot of mine that I've already had, which is, are you doing it? Are you doing enough? And I think that question comes to me a lot. And here's what I've learned for me personally. This is what I've learned, and then what I've noticed. My concern when I was younger was always, I'm not doing enough. And so that would create in me a lot of anxious toil. And in Psalm 127, it says, that if you labor in vain, you should go to bed late and you wake up early in vain when you're doing it for anxious toil. But it's really, unless God is the one watching over the city, or unless it's actually, God, the one that builds the house, all of your efforts are in vain. And so I was running off of anxious toil back then. Now I'm not working off of anxious toil so much, because I know that ultimately it's in God's hands. However, I've noticed this. The anxious toil provoked me to work what I thought was harder. So the actual intensity that I felt, that feeling, it felt like I was working hard. But when you look at the reality, what was on paper, it amounted to almost nothing. There was really nothing, but it just felt really hard. Now I think I'm doing a little bit more, but I don't feel that anxious toil. I don't feel like I'm putting in enough. And I think that this feeling that I'm not putting in enough is more justified than the feeling I had prior, because I felt like I'm not doing enough, and it felt like I was in the suffering, and when you look on paper, there was nothing to show. Now I don't feel like I feel like I'm putting in hard work, but I feel like I could be doing more. And if I look on paper, like, hey, hold on, I think I am doing a little bit more. Like, I already signed 2 clients. I've gotten a little bit more clear, like, on my offer. I have my automation thing that I wanted up and running, already up. So there's a little bit more on paper to give evidence for saying, hey, look, I'm actually taking some decent steps forward. But now I feel like I'm not doing enough. And now I think it's more justified that I'm not doing enough, because I'm not doing it for anxious toil. I'm doing it because I have full faith that God is the one that's going to grow this. But I need to, be able to get my hands dirty. So anyways, with my students saying that, it touched on that sore spot. Am I really taking in the advice that I give? And I pray to God that I am. But how can you survey that? I guess the way you can survey that is by actually looking and writing it down, because unless you write it down, you won't know truly, because you might forget, you might remember differently. And unless you write down, you're not going to actually be able to know your numbers. Hence why I made that app on my iPad about, allowing me to track how many people I'm reaching out to and all these things. Because unless I do that, I'm not. And the same reason why I keep a to-do list, because I can be able to check off. And when I look at that to-do list and I say, oh my God, I haven't checked off anything, it makes me infuriated. So anyways, I think my main point is that I need to work harder. I've been working long days, my job, but I also need to be very intentional to not let that other voice creep in my head of like excuses, like, bro, you're tired, not getting enough sleep, or you're not getting enough sleep, that's why you're not giving it as much as you can, you know what I mean? Or dude, you've worked all day, like, just do a few reach outs and that's it. Like, no, it's unreasonable for you to feel that way when you have such goals that you're trying to achieve. It is unreasonable for you to believe that and actually act on it. I would rather go too far than not far enough. And I think it's in Lamentations. It's like, it's good that a young man bears the yoke of his youth. Yo, beat yourself down. It's gonna be harder when you get older, but beat yourself. So in that way, you're big chilling. Those dreams that you have, that vision that you saw when you were in freaking, back on the farm, that life that you see, work for it. I just know why it hasn't. I just don't. I'm pissed that it hasn't come yet. But anyways, so yeah, that's where I'm at. And I'm appreciative that you've joined me for this journey.